The receipt was still in my wallet. Crumpled, faded, timestamp barely legible, 7:46 p.m., the night everything cracked. It was for 2 hot chocolates and a slice of lemon pie. I kept it, not because of sentiment, but because I couldn't understand it. Because I needed something to prove to myself that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. That I had really been there. That she had really done it. People think betrayal shows up like a slap, loud, sudden, dramatic. But sometimes it's as soft as whipped cream sliding off a spoon while 2 people sit in a booth, laughing at a joke you'll never hear. I wasn't even supposed to be at the cafe that night. I had been driving home from the hardware store when I realized I forgot to buy the damn screws. I took a left turn I hadn't planned and passed that little corner spot she said she never liked. So imagine my confusion when I saw her, Laurel, sitting by the window, her scarf twisted the way she always does when she's nervous, head tilted back, laughing with someone across from her. It wasn't the laughter that got me. It was the fork. She never shared dessert. She used to guard her plate like a dragon hoarding treasure. And there she was, leaning forward, giggling as this man slid his fork into her mouth like it belonged there. I didn't walk in. I didn't even stop the car. I just kept driving, made it 3 blocks, then pulled over and sat with my hand shaking on the steering wheel, the world tilting sideways like a cheap carnival ride. I went back, ordered the same thing they had, sat alone at a different table, watched them from the corner of my eye like some pathetic detective in a low-budget soap. I paid in cash, took the receipt, didn't confront her, didn't yell, didn't cry, just disappeared. The next morning, I packed a duffel bag, left my keys on the counter, wrote a note that said nothing literally, just a blank piece of paper with a coffee ring on it, and I walked out of my own life like it was a movie I no longer wanted to watch. For a full year, I erased myself. No texts, no social media, no calls to my brother, even though he kept leaving voicemails like, "Man, at least say you're alive." Alive? Yeah, technically. But what kind of life is it when the person you'd have taken a bullet for quietly handed you the gun? But here's the part no one warns you about. Grief has a schedule, but guilt doesn't. I wasn't guilty for leaving. I was guilty for not seeing it coming. For ignoring the signs. For believing the tiny moments still meant something. For remembering her favorite tea brand while she forgot my birthday. A full year. And then one night, one of those gray, slushy nights when everything smells like wet cardboard and old memories, she found me. Not online. Not through a friend. She walked into the laundromat where I was folding a stranger's towels for minimum wage. Her eyes locked on mine like no time had passed. And in the quietest voice I've ever heard, she said something that cracked open the part of me I thought I'd sealed shut forever. I wish I could say I handled it with strength. But I didn't. What she said, that's the part I'm still trying to recover from. The second she said my name, I forgot how to breathe. It wasn't the word itself, Emery. I'd heard it 1,000 times, in every possible tone, tired, loving, annoyed, laughing. But this time, it sounded like she wasn't sure she had the right to say it anymore. She stood there near the detergent machine, her voice small, eyes wide, rain dripping from her coat like the sky had tried to drown her on the way in. She didn't look like the woman from the cafe window. That woman had sparkled, had leaned into someone else's warmth. This version of Laurel looked like she hadn't been warm in months. I didn't speak. Just stared. My hands froze in the middle of folding some stranger's pale green bedsheet. The washer behind me beeped, snapping to silence, but neither of us moved. She took a shaky step forward, like I was a ghost that might vanish if she got too close. "Can we talk?" she whispered. I nodded. I didn't want to, but I did. We stepped outside under the flickering streetlight, where the rain still hissed softly on the pavement. My breath fogged up in the air between us, like even the atmosphere wanted to keep us separated. For a long time, she didn't speak. She just looked at me like she was trying to memorize everything. My face, my jacket, my silence. Then finally, she reached into her purse and pulled something out, folded paper, already creased at the edges. She handed it to me without a word. I opened it with numb fingers. It was the receipt. The one from the cafe. The one I thought I had thrown away weeks ago in a motel trash can. She had found it. Somehow. Somewhere. And written across the back in shaky blue ink were 7 words. "I know. I saw you. I'm sorry." That was it. No explanations. No dramatic confession. Just that. I stared at it, heart hammering, mind racing. "You saw me." Laurel nodded slowly. "You sat 2 tables behind us. You ordered the pie." I remember thinking, you still remembered my favorite. That should have made me feel something anger, maybe. vindication. But I just felt sick. All this time, I thought I'd disappeared, that I had the upper hand by walking away, by vanishing. But she had seen me. And still, she didn't come after me. Not then. Not for 12 months. You didn't follow me, I finally said, the words coming out like splinters. She looked down, swallowed hard. I didn't think I had the right to. That sentence hit differently, like a match being struck inside a paper house. I had imagined so many scenarios over the past year. Her begging, her denying, her screaming. But not this. Not quiet guilt. Not her admitting what I had always feared, that I was easy to leave. I waited, she said, eyes filling with tears. For weeks. I thought maybe you'd call. And then when you didn't, I started to think, maybe you were better off. I wanted to yell. I wanted to demand answers, to drag the truth out of her piece by piece like pulling shards of glass from my skin. But I just stood there, letting the rain soak through my sleeves, because deep down, I was still the same guy who couldn't let go of her voice. Why now? I asked finally. Why show up now? Her answer came out so softly I almost missed it. Because I can't fix what I broke. But maybe I can explain why I shattered it. And that's when she said something I never, in 1,000 nightmares, expected to hear. Something that made my jaw lock and my chest cave in. Something that made her betrayal feel like just the first layer of a story I didn't know I was living in. What she said, that's coming in part 3. But just know this, betrayal was only the beginning. And the real reason she did it? It's worse than anything I ever imagined. When she said the words, I didn't understand them at first. I didn't betray you because I loved someone else. I betrayed you because I didn't know how to love myself. I stood there staring at her like she'd just recited a riddle from a dream I wasn't awake enough to solve. That line, those specific words, they didn't land the way I expected. They didn't feel like closure or clarity. They felt like evasion. Like she was trying to spin something so vile into something poetic. Like I was supposed to pat her on the back and say, oh, okay, that makes sense now. You were soul-searching with your mouth wrapped around someone else's fork. But she didn't say it with smugness. No twisted smirk. No condescending tone. She looked like she'd been crushed beneath the very weight of the confession. And I, stupidly, weakly listened. Just like I always did. She sat down on the curb, palms over her knees, breathing like each inhale cost her something. I stayed standing, arms crossed, heart pounding with that sick rhythm you get when you're stuck between exploding and imploding. I didn't want to sit beside her. But I couldn't walk away either. I hated the way you looked at me, she said suddenly. Like I was perfect. Like I was the one thing in your life that made sense. Because I wasn't. I wasn't that. And I didn't know how to live up to it. My mouth went dry. So instead of telling me, punished me? You decided to destroy what we had because you were afraid I loved you too much. She flinched. Actually flinched. I don't expect you to understand it, she said. But it's not like I planned it. Dylan wasn't. It wasn't about him. He was just the first person who didn't see me as someone to put on a pedestal. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. She cheated on me because I respected her too much? Is that where we'd landed? For years, she continued, I kept telling myself I was just tired. That I was stressed. That you weren't doing anything wrong, but I still felt empty. Like I wasn't living my own life. Like I was performing as Laurel, the good wife, and waiting for the curtain to fall. I remember gripping the edge of the laundromat's brick wall, trying not to snap. The part that hurt the most wasn't even what she did with Dylan. It was that she had all of these thoughts, this entire inner storm, and she never let me into it. She just let it drag her away quietly until one day I was sitting alone in a car watching her laugh through a café window with a man I'd never seen. Do you even regret it? I asked finally. Not just losing me, I mean the act. The deception. The secrecy. She looked up at me, her mascara now a ghost on her cheekbones, and said the last thing I expected. I regret that I made you believe you weren't enough when you were the only thing that ever felt like home. I didn't have a response to that. Not right away. Not even later, after she left. Because that line stuck to my ribs like something heavy you can't digest. I didn't know if she meant it. I didn't know if it mattered. She stood slowly, brushed off the back of her jeans, and added, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I came here because I heard you were back, and I couldn't live with myself if I didn't at least face you. How did you even find me? I asked. That's when she hesitated. And when she finally answered, it sent a chill straight through me. I didn't find you. Pause. Someone sent me a letter. A photo. Of you. My stomach sank. A photo? I asked. Who sent it? She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the envelope. It was crumpled, opened, but the return address was torn off. Inside was a single Polaroid, grainy but clear, of me sitting on the steps of the old post office near the edge of town. I remember the day it was taken. I'd been feeding the stray cat that hung around the dumpsters. No one was around. Or so I thought. "Laurel," I said, my throat tightening. Who else knew I was here? She didn't speak. And I realized something chilling. Maybe Laurel wasn't the only one who'd betrayed me. Maybe someone else had been watching all along. And whoever it was, they had plans of their own. For a long time after she handed me that photo, neither of us spoke. The Polaroid trembled slightly in my hands. There I was, slouched on those chipped concrete steps, hair longer, eyes sunken, a paper bag in my lap from the deli that never gave you what you ordered. I remembered that day clearly, mostly because nothing happened. I just existed, fed the stray cat, talked to no one, sat in silence. And yet, someone had seen me, framed the moment, captured it, sent it, and sent it to her. The envelope had no name, no note, no handwriting to dissect. Just that single image and the clean, precise edges where the return address had been sliced off. I stared at it until my brain hurt, hoping some hidden message would emerge. It didn't. "Laurel," I said finally, keeping my voice low. "Why would someone send this to you?" She shifted uncomfortably on her feet. "I don't know. I swear. I thought maybe it was your sister." "My sister hasn't spoken to me since I left," I said flatly. "She told me I was a coward for running. She said, you always choose disappearing over fighting. Then she blocked me." End of story. Laurel hesitated again. Her fingers played with the zipper on her jacket like she was trying to unzip the truth from herself. Well, maybe it was someone who thought I deserved a second chance. I looked up sharply. "Deserved? I don't mean it like that," she said quickly. "I mean someone who believed in us, or thought they were helping. Helping by spying on me and delivering me to the woman who tore my life in half?" I snapped. Yeah, what a hero. I was angry now, not just at her, but at the creeping realization that my exile hadn't been as clean as I thought. I'd vanished, but someone had been tracking me like I was a loose thread they couldn't let unravel. I'd built a whole identity out of silence, and yet this envelope meant I had been watched, tracked, chosen. But by who? Laurel reached into her coat again. That's not the only thing that was in the envelope. She pulled out another photo. This one wasn't of me. It was of her. Laurel. She was in a parking lot, arms wrapped around Dylan. Not a kiss, not some sleazy hotel hallway moment. Just an embrace. Intimate. Her eyes closed, forehead resting against his chest like she had finally exhaled. The timestamp at the bottom corner said it all, 2 weeks after I left. I stared at it, my throat locking around the words I couldn't say. She hadn't just moved on. She'd found comfort in the arms of the man she swore meant nothing. "You told me it ended the day I left," I whispered. "It did," she said, eyes wide. "That wasn't. I didn't. It's not what it looks like." "God," I muttered, turning away, clutching the photo like it might combust. "You really never stop, do you?" "That day, I told him it was over," she said, walking after me. "He tried to hug me. I let him. I didn't know someone was taking photos. I didn't know they'd be sent to you. That's when it hit me. Someone had both photos. Someone had been tracking both of us. Watching her. Watching me. From different places. Different moments. Someone who knew us both well enough to know what would rattle us the most. Someone playing a game. "I need to know who gave this to you," I said, turning back to her. "We need to find out who's behind this. Because this," I waved the envelope, "this isn't reconciliation. This is someone stirring a pot that should have been left to boil over and die." Laurel nodded slowly. "I've already started trying to trace it. I asked the post office if there were cameras." "No," I stopped her. "No post office would hand that over. Not for something like this. We need to think smarter. Who had access to both of us? Who knew enough about our movements after the split?" Her face paled. It was slight, barely a flicker, but I saw it. "What?" I pressed. "What is it?" "There's one person," she said quietly. "Only one person who could have seen us both. Who knew where you went? Who knew where I was that day?" She swallowed, looked up at me, and said the name like it was a curse. "Chase." I blinked. "Your cousin." She nodded. "He helped me pack up after you left. He said he ran into you once, that you were okay. I thought he was just trying to make me feel better." My blood ran cold. Chase was always around, quiet, helpful, non-confrontational. The guy who showed up to help carry furniture but never spoke more than 5 words. The kind of guy you forgot about the second he left the room. And now, apparently, the kind of guy who sent anonymous Polaroids to stir the ashes of a broken marriage. "I need to talk to him," I said. Alone. Laurel reached out like she wanted to stop me. Emery, please. Whatever he's doing, it's not worth dragging yourself back into this. But I had already made up my mind. I'd spent a year trying to forget what she did. But now I needed to know what someone else had been doing behind both our backs. Because maybe, just maybe, the betrayal wasn't hers alone. The next morning, I drove to Chase's place, if you can call it a place. It was a small, crumbling rental unit tucked behind a boarded-up warehouse on the edge of town, a forgotten pocket where dead leaves clung to chain-link fences and nothing looked fully alive. I hadn't seen Chase in over a year. I'd never cared to reach out, never thought I needed to. He was background noise. A quiet blur in the family circle. Laurel's cousin by blood, mine only by distant connection. But now, the weight of 2 photos pressed in my pocket, I knew I'd been wrong to overlook him. When I knocked, no one answered. I waited, knocked again. Nothing. I started to turn back, irritation bubbling, when the door creaked open just a few inches. There he was. Sleepy eyes. Hoodie pulled tight around his face. One headphone dangling. Emery, he said, like I was the last person he expected to see. Yeah, we need to talk, I said, stepping in before he could decide otherwise. His place smelled like dust and burnt coffee. The couch had a blanket shaped like a permanent outline of his body. Empty energy drink cans lined the windowsill. This was the home of a man who didn't entertain guests, who existed on autopilot, who lurked in the cracks between other people's chaos. He sat down without asking me why I was there. Like he already knew. I got straight to it. You sent the photos. His shoulders stiffened, but he didn't deny it. He just stared ahead like I'd reminded him of something he'd hoped would stay buried. Why? I asked. Why follow me? Why follow her? Why stir all of this up a year later? He didn't speak right away. Just leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped like he was holding on to something that might shatter if he moved too fast. You think she was the only one who betrayed you? He said finally. The question didn't make sense. I stared at him, waiting for more, and when he didn't give it, I said, you better start explaining before I lose what little patience I've got left. Chase exhaled slowly. I didn't take the photo of her and Dylan. Someone mailed that to me. Weeks before I found yours. I didn't recognize the sender either. No name, no message, just that picture of Laurel. It messed with my head. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to tell her or tell you or just destroy it and forget. But you didn't forget, I said. No, he admitted. I held on to it. Because I knew something wasn't right. And then 2 months ago, I got the second one. Of you. Alone. On those steps. And that one broke me. Why? I asked quietly. Chase rubbed his eyes. Because I realized someone was watching the two of you like pieces in a game. And I figured if I didn't act, it would keep happening. So I put the photos together. I mailed them to Laurel. I didn't put my name on it because I didn't want either of you coming after me before you thought about what it meant. That someone else was pulling strings? I said. He nodded. Exactly. I've been trying to figure out who it could be, but there's not much to go on. And no one talks. You're saying a stranger followed both of us, took pictures a year apart, and sent them to you for no reason? I shook my head. That's insane. I didn't say it was a stranger, Chase said, eyes narrowing. Something cold slipped down my spine. You think it's someone we know? He nodded. Someone who wanted you to see your fall, and her to see you broken. The words landed like a punch. This wasn't about closure. It wasn't about second chances. It was humiliation, curated and delivered like a sick performance for someone else's benefit. So what now? I asked. What are we supposed to do? Just sit around waiting for more envelopes? Chase looked at me for a long time before replying. You said you wanted answers. I think we need to go back. Back where? To where it started. I stared at him, confused. The café, he said. The night you saw her. I need to retrace what happened that night. Maybe someone else was there. Maybe you weren't the only one watching. It sounded like a stretch. A desperate shot in the dark. But what else did I have? The last year of my life had been silence, exile, and pain I couldn't unpack. Now there was a thread, thin, fraying, but real, and I had to follow it. As I stood to leave, Chase stopped me with a final question. Do you really want to know the truth, Emery? The whole truth? I hesitated. I don't know, but I think I'm too far in now not to find out. His eyes narrowed. Then prepare yourself, he said. Because the truth doesn't care if it breaks you. As I walked out into the pale morning light, I had no idea just how right he was. Because the truth was, I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. My mind was crawling with faces, old friends, coworkers, People we'd invited into our home over the years who now looked different in my memory. What if someone we trusted had been there all along, not watching over us, but watching us? Not helping us heal, but carefully prying the cracks open just enough to enjoy the collapse. I sat on the motel bed staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked in rhythm, that same broken blade wobbling the way it had for weeks. I kept wondering how I didn't notice any of this sooner. Not Chase's suspicions. Not the photos. Not the invisible puppeteer behind our unraveling. Laurel's betrayal had distracted me from something worse, the possibility that it was never just about her and me. At 10 the next morning, I met Chase 2 blocks from the cafe. I hadn't been back since that night. Not once. I'd avoided that entire street like it carried a virus. The irony of returning to the scene of the heartbreak now, chasing someone else's fingerprints, wasn't lost on me. The place hadn't changed. Still had those tacky fairy lights draped across the windows, still smelled like burnt cinnamon and nostalgia. I stood on the opposite side of the street for a long time before going in, staring at the booth near the window, their booth. The one where I saw her that night. I could still see it clearly in my mind, the tilt of her head, the soft laugh that didn't belong to me anymore, and the glint of the fork she shared with someone who wasn't her husband. My stomach turned. "You ready?" Chase asked beside me. "Not even close," I muttered. But I pushed the door open anyway. Inside, it felt smaller. Dimmer. Maybe because I wasn't the man who used to come here every Sunday with Laurel, pretending to love their bitter coffee just because she liked the ambience. Now I just felt like a ghost revisiting his own grave. We sat at the back, near where I'd been that night, and Chase pulled out a small leather notebook. I didn't even ask why. He flipped through a few pages before asking the first question. "When you came in that night, did anyone talk to you? Staff? Customers?" I shook my head. I came in, ordered at the counter, sat by myself. I didn't want to make a scene. "But someone must have seen you," he said, looking around. "Someone had to notice." "Maybe," I said, but I wasn't exactly looking to be remembered. We sat in silence for a few minutes until a woman approached our table, older, maybe late 50s, red apron dusted with flour. "You two need menus?" she asked. Chase smiled politely. "No, thank you. Actually, I was hoping you might remember a night from about a year ago. Quiet evening. 2 people sat in that front booth. A woman with dark hair. Man in a brown jacket. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. I could see her mentally reaching into the vault of thousands of customers and fading memories. I didn't expect her to say anything. But then she tilted her head and said, "You mean the couple that got into it after the guy stormed out?" My body tensed. "What do you mean got into it?" The woman shrugged. "The guy, Dylan, I think she called him, started yelling after she said something he didn't like. He knocked over a glass. I remember because it shattered, and I had to clean it. That was maybe 10 minutes after you left." My heart dropped. "They fought. Pretty bad," she said. "She was crying when she left. Sat there alone for a while first." Chase leaned forward. "Did anyone else talk to her? After he left?" The woman paused. "Actually, yeah. Weird now that you mention it. This young guy came in, maybe mid-30s. Sat across from her. Didn't order anything. Just talked. Real quiet." I froze. "Do you remember what he looked like?" I asked. "Blondish hair. Kinda messy. Wore glasses. Kept rubbing his wrist like he had a habit. I remember that because my son does the same thing." Chase and I locked eyes. That was not Dylan. And it sure as hell wasn't me. Whoever that was, that man, came in after I left and sat with my wife. Someone who didn't belong there. Someone who inserted himself into our story. Did they seem like they knew each other? Chase asked. "No. That's the odd thing." She looked confused at first. But then they talked like old friends who hadn't seen each other in years. Not lovers. Not strangers. Something in between. I felt sick. That man hadn't just witnessed something. He'd inserted himself into the moment. Into the very heart of our collapse. And now I had no idea who he was, or why he'd been there. "Did he leave anything?" I asked. "Did you happen to get his name?" She laughed softly. "Honey, if I remembered the names of every strange man who sat in this cafe for 5 minutes, I'd be in the FBI. No, but I do remember one thing." We both leaned in. He gave her something. A small black envelope. I blinked. "A black envelope?" "Yep. Real slim." She didn't open it there. Just tucked it into her purse and left in a hurry. I sat back, cold creeping up my neck. Laurel never told me about any black envelope. Not then. Not later. Not even after her confession. Chase stood abruptly. "We need to go." As we stepped outside, the air felt heavier. He turned to me, eyes burning with adrenaline. If Laurel still has that envelope, she's been holding back. And if she's been holding back, this goes deeper than betrayal. It means there was someone else pulling the strings from the very beginning. I didn't respond. I was already moving. Because I had one stop left that day. Back to Laurel. And this time, I wasn't going to let her cry her way out of the truth. I didn't call ahead. I didn't knock gently. I walked straight through the front door of Laurel's apartment like I still had the right to. Like I wasn't the ghost of a man she'd once promised to love. She was on the couch, wearing an old college hoodie and thick socks, her hair tied up like she hadn't expected to see anyone. The look on her face when she saw me said it all. She knew. She already knew I'd found something. You never mentioned a black envelope, I said. She opened her mouth, closed it, then stood slowly, pressing her fingers to her forehead like she could physically hold the truth in. I didn't think it mattered, she said. No. I laughed dryly. A mysterious man sits down across from you right after your affair partner storms out, hands you a sealed envelope in the middle of a cafe, and you thought that didn't matter? It was just paper, she mumbled, walking toward a drawer in the corner of the room. I followed her closely, watching every move like she might slip into another lie at any second. She pulled out a small wooden box, opened it, and there it was, still there. Sleek black paper, neatly sealed. Untouched. You never opened it? I asked. I wanted to, she admitted. So many times. But part of me was scared. I thought maybe it was from Dylan. Or maybe it was from you. From me. I said, nearly laughing. Why would you think I'd send you something in the same moment I was watching you cheat on me from across the room? Because it felt like punishment, she said, barely a whisper. It felt like it was meant to haunt me. I grabbed the envelope and turned it over. No return address. No handwriting. Just a faint imprint on the back, like something had been pressed inside so tightly that it left a ghost of itself behind. A square, slightly textured. I peeled the flap open slowly, carefully. Laurel didn't stop me. She just stood back, arms crossed, like she already knew what I'd find but didn't have the strength to say it. Inside was a folded note. No signature. Just 4 lines typed out in clean black ink. You were always going to choose wrong. You broke the one who saw you. Now someone else sees everything. This is not over. The room spun. My stomach twisted. The air felt like static, like something had gone fundamentally wrong in the fabric of my memory. This wasn't a warning. It was a promise. And whoever wrote it wasn't done. Laurel sank to the edge of the couch, her face pale. That's why I didn't open it. That's why I didn't tell you. Because something about it felt off. Why didn't you burn it? I snapped. I couldn't. I felt like if I destroyed it, it would make things worse. Like maybe it was proof of something I didn't understand yet. I paced the room, the letter trembling in my hand. This wasn't from Dylan. He didn't talk like this. He wasn't that clever. This is from someone who knew both of us. Someone who wanted this to unravel slowly. Chase's words echoed in my mind. Do you really want to know the truth, Emery? Because the truth doesn't care if it breaks you. I looked at Laurel. Think. Who else was there that night? Anyone who could have seen you, seen me, known the timing? She shook her head, then paused. Wait. There was someone. I stopped pacing. Who? I didn't think about it at the time. I barely even noticed him. But when I was walking out of the cafe, a man followed me down the block. He didn't say anything. Just walked a few paces behind me. And you didn't tell me this before. Why? Because I didn't remember. And by the time I did, you were gone, and everything was already ruined. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down, to think clearly. Describe him. She hesitated, but her voice came out steady. White coat. Too clean for the weather. Slender. Wore gloves, even though it wasn't cold. Blonde, maybe. Or light brown hair. It was under a hood. That was it. That was the same description Chase had given from the cafe waitress. The man who rubbed his wrist. The man who wasn't Dylan. The man who gave her this envelope. Whoever he was, he hadn't just stumbled upon us by accident. He was watching from the beginning, maybe even before we fell apart. I turned to Laurel. We need to go back to Chase. Tonight. She didn't argue. But just as we stepped into the hallway, her phone buzzed. She froze, then slowly lifted it to her face. I watched the color drain from her cheeks. What is it? I asked. She handed me the phone without a word. One new message. No number. No contact photo. Just an image. Another Polaroid. It was me, standing in her hallway, holding the black envelope, face frozen in shock. It had been taken less than 10 minutes ago, and the message that came with it took you long enough. I've been waiting for you to come back. I stood frozen, staring at the photo on her phone, me, captured in real time, holding the black envelope. The lighting was identical to what surrounded us now. Same hallway, same posture. My head tilted in the exact way I remembered. It hadn't been taken yesterday or earlier that week. That image had been taken minutes before it was sent, which meant whoever had been watching was close. Laurel and I both turned toward the front door at the same time. No one knocked. No one tried to enter. The street outside was quiet. A single street lamp buzzed overhead, casting thin light over the sidewalk. The cold air moved through the doorframe like a silent warning, but no figure emerged. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't panicking. I was focused. Because the one thing that became clear in that moment was this: we were never just being toyed with. We were being tested. And maybe, just maybe, whoever was behind this had a reason for everything. I called Chase on speaker, told him what just happened. He didn't act surprised. I was hoping it wouldn't go this far, he said. But I think it's time I tell you what I found. He asked us to meet him at his place. Said he had something to show us. We got there just before midnight. He was waiting outside, hands in his hoodie pocket, face pale. He let us in without a word, then handed me a small manila folder. Inside were photocopies of driver's licenses, handwritten letters, and a short journal entry. Everything pointed to the same man, Owen Delcourt. That name meant nothing to me. But when I looked at Laurel, her face dropped. She sat down, eyes wide. I know that name. I tutored his sister. Years ago. She had epilepsy. I used to help her with reading when I was still in college. Chase nodded. He was quiet. A little off. Always watched from the hallway. Never spoke. Until one day he showed up and asked to talk to you privately. You turned him down. Laurel blinked, slowly remembering. He got upset. Said I was fake. Said I acted kind for credit, not because I cared. Chase pulled out one more photo. Owen was sitting at the same café, months before any of this happened. Alone. Watching people. Documenting them. He's been following you both for years, Chase said. He developed some twisted belief that your relationship wasn't real. That you were both putting on a show. So when he saw things falling apart, he decided to push. That was the word that stuck, push. He sent the photos? I asked. Chase nodded. And the note. And the one from today. He's not trying to destroy you. He's trying to prove you were never real in the first place. It should have felt horrifying. But what I felt was released. This wasn't Laurel's master plan. It wasn't mine. It wasn't fate punishing us. It was a lonely man's projection, one we both unknowingly stepped into. I looked at Laurel across the room. Her eyes locked with mine. There was pain there, still. But also recognition. For the first time in over a year, we weren't fighting over what we'd lost. We were both staring at what we'd survived. And for reasons I still can't fully explain, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Later that night, I sat outside Chase's building, watching the sky lighten behind the trees. Laurel came out beside me with 2 mugs of tea. No more envelopes. No more photos. No more shadows. Just us. I'm sorry for what I did to you, she whispered. I'm sorry I disappeared, I said. Neither of us made promises. We didn't talk about starting over. But when we left together that morning, there was a softness to it. Like something had cracked open, not just the pain, but the space to begin again. And maybe that's the best ending I could have asked for. Not revenge. Not revenge dressed up as closure. But clarity. After everything, betrayal, disappearance, mysterious letters, strangers in cafes, I finally understood that what broke us didn't have to define us. Sometimes, even when the story takes you through hell, it doesn't mean it can't still end in peace. Or even, maybe, something like hope.